Hey guys, this is well, technically it would be day 90, but I mean, it technically is day 92. Um, it would have been day 90 if I made that video, the last 2 days, but we just didn't. Sure, I can say, oh, I didn't have time, but I did. I could have had time if I woke up earlier, but hey, either way, we're still right here. We showed up, third day. Yes, so would be day 92 right now. So yeah, that's what we're gonna call it, day 92. On the chapter though, we are picking right where we left off on 2 Corinthians chapter 11. And again, I'm not gonna read the entire thing. So again, I'm just gonna emphasize the verses that I thought were that explain the message that Paul is trying to give. So basically, on the context of the chapter, the Corinthians didn't know which leader to follow, because there was Paul, but there were also other leaders, or other preachers, other prophets, I guess. No, not prophets. Yeah, there were other people that that also preached the message of God, and they looked, when they were doing it, they were, to the human eye, to our eye, they looked strong. They looked just mighty, and therefore we would suppose that they are favored by God. But they were preaching the wrong gospel, and so Paul sees that the Corinthians are putting their faith on false prophets, false preachers, and he begins to remind the Corinthians that when preaching, in order to spot a servant of Christ, a messenger of God, we don't focus on their or we shouldn't focus on in the outside, how they appear. And it would be kind of like a red flag, I guess, to when you see this false prophet and they are bragging about, oh, look how righteous I am, oh, look at me, how all the big words I use while praying, or all that sort of Pharisee stuff. But Paul gives, again, of course, since he is imitating God, he gives a godly response, a response that Jesus would have most likely said or agreed with. Yeah, Jesus would agree with. And for example, okay, verse 7 and 8 sort of explain this a little bit, and it says, or did I commit a sin in humbling myself so that you might be exalted, because I preached God's gospel to you free of charge? I robbed other churches by accepting support from them in order to serve you. And this is another characteristic that these false preachers had, that they were charging for the message of God. Like they required payment, in order for them to spread the message of life, which is totally the opposite of what Paul did. He didn't look strong. He didn't look strong, like strong and mighty on the worldly view. He looked pretty miserable in the worldly view again, and he preached the gospel free of charge. Again, he was in this. Hold on, I need to close this thing. Okay, so Paul was in this state of constant humility, basically making himself less or not too noticeable, just like a vessel, in order for the gospel to be, in order for everyone to be putting their attention on the gospel rather than the preacher. And on verse 11, Paul explains why he does this, why he doesn't charge them for the gospel. It says, and why? Because I do not love you. God knows I do. That he does this. He does all this because he loves them. He loves the Corinthians. He loves God's children. Which, it's the same reason why I'm doing it. I may forget a couple of days why I'm doing it, but it is why. One of the main reasons of why I'm doing this, because I love you guys. And then on verse 12 to 15, from verse 12 to 15, it explains how these false prophets that appear righteous look. Verse 12, and what I am doing, I will continue to do, in order to undermine the claim of those who would like to claim that in their boasted mission they work on the same terms as we do. For such men are false apostles, deceitful workmen, disguising themselves as apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no surprise if his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. Their end will correspond to their deeds. Which again, they appear only in the outside righteous, but for example, in their private lives, most especially in their private lives, they act like the world, which is, this would apply to many other topics, like relationships or friendships, or to only put a few examples, that you have to check for fruit. You have to be careful who is giving you advice, because you don't want to, or you wouldn't trust advice from someone that doesn't really live such advice. And you wouldn't trust someone whose advice goes against what he lives for. Which again is just a reminder to check for fruit, the fruits of the Spirit. Just to only mention some, because I don't remember every single one. Patience, kindness, self-control, etc. I forgot the other 6. I think faithfulness, another one. Yeah. Yes. Again, these nine. No, six. Yeah, I think there are nine. These nine fruits of the Spirit, and many more, that can that will guarantee you that their advice can be trusted. That again, these people reflect Christ. It's not easy to see, instantly, automatically. It's not easy to recognize these at first sight. But if you strengthen your discernment, which a very good boost up, in my opinion, is Proverbs. That's almost like a cheat code. Strengthen your discernment, because even when like on social media, when you see all these people preaching the gospel, they may have good intentions, but they might give you the wrong message, because they are taking it based on their own context, their own understanding. They are leaning on their own understanding. Therefore, they either on purpose or accidentally, they might give you the wrong message and lead you into, destruction. Maybe not literal like destruction, not like murder or something now, but they will like cause you to make some mistakes, which, I mean, it'll happen independently, you making mistakes, but you don't want to be making mistakes because other person, some other guy or girl just told you, oh, do you know this about the Bible, that it says this and it actually means this, and you just believed it just because, and didn't check for fruit, just assumed that because they are preaching the gospel, they are automatically servants of Christ, which is a massive and dangerous assumption. What Paul's main point is to watch out for these false prophets, these deceitful preachers that twist the word of God. Take it from the context and try to fit it for their own, their own subjective morality or their own agendas. But also, good thing that Paul tells us by mentioning himself as an example of what it's not bragging, because he is like very humble based on what his status. Could have been way easier to just think, oh, I'm so righteous and everything. No. For example, verse 30 on chapter 11, yes, on verse 30 says, if I must boast, I will boast of the things that show my weakness. What he means is, rather than focusing on, oh, look how strong I am, how humble I am, look at me how patient I am, oh, look at me how kind I am. He says that we should rather focus on, oh, look how impatient I am, how rude I am, how prideful I am. Not that we would don't take it wrong here, don't go not saying you should be proud of your weakness. No, but instead of focusing on your strengths, that you focus on your weakness. Because again, it is kind of one of the main things to suppress these weaknesses, change these bad habits, so that again we imitate God. That is our purpose our like main objective to be like God, not gods ourselves, but to act like God, to that we have like, share in the same. Okay, I gotta be really careful, right here. I don't want to commit any heresy, but just act like Jesus would. Be a reflection of him. It's absolute, in the absolute 100% meaning of the word. And that's why, again, Paul says to, instead of taking pride and focusing on how strong you are, focus on how weak you are, how wicked you are, so that for one, you stay humble, and at the same time, you are improving. So, that combination is really good. Just again, verse 17 and 18 say almost the same, similar stuff to verse 30. And verse 17 says, "What I am saying with this boastful confidence, I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool. Since many boast according to the flesh, I too will boast." What does he mean, I say not as the Lord would? Because again, would Jesus say, "Oh, look at my weakness"? Maybe literally anyone else, any other human, sure, but Jesus? Yes, he was poor, but doesn't mean he was weak. Yes, he was beaten with lashes and crucified, and he looked weak, but I think in that moment he showed how strong, or not 100% of 100% of his power, but just how strong he was at that moment. So again, Jesus wasn't weak. So that's what Paul means as when saying, "I say not as the Lord would, but as a fool." Because again, Christ has no weaknesses. Maybe sin. Sin is not his weakness. No, it's just the counterpart. It's just being the opposite. Yeah, Christ being light and sin being darkness, which is their opposite. Cannot coexist. Cannot be at the same. Yeah, just cannot be one. Lightness and darkness cannot be just one. They logically are opposite. It's either darkness or light. Just that's it. Okay, going back. Just true servants of Christ preach in humility. In this humility, they give, or they transmit this, the entire point of the message that they give points to God. God gets the entire flashlight, or stage light, my bad. He gets the entire attention, not the preacher. Because again, technically we are vessels. So yeah. And that if we're gonna brag about something instead of how righteous we are, if we're gonna brag about something, we should, brag about our weakness. Oh, look how weak I am without Christ. Which again, this perspective, or this perspective shifts all the attention to how important Christ is in our lives. Oh, look, again, just look what happens when Christ is not in my life. Look what happens when I'm not in my word. Look what happens when I don't seek God. Okay. Oh yeah, and then like later in the chapter, I didn't highlight these, but from verse 23 to 27, no, 28. From verse 23 to 28, Paul explains that, or shares this, that he has been beaten with rods, he was stoned, he was shipwrecked 3 times, he was lashed, he received 40 lashes, I think. Well, I don't know if 40 lashes. Oh my gosh. But he was lashed. And he has been imprisoned. He has been beaten. He has been often near death. Well, I mean, yeah, he's, like he passed away, but not meaning he's dead. He's pretty much alive. But again, just he has been near death many times. That's like the severeness of the situations he's been in. And this kind of made me think that strangely, like not funny because it's not like, but curiously, the gospel is somehow like it's louder, it's more meaningful to others and to the preacher, of course, when it is done, when it is preached from a miserable position, when the preacher is being, again, like Paul, tortured, reviled, persecuted, hated, and even killed. It is more meaningful. It's somehow its effect is still like greater. Which, like, again, a very strong point to support the validity of the Bible, of what the apostles what the apostles wrote. Sorry guys, the internet went off and my dad had to walk in and just all that stuff. Yeah, again, what I was saying, that the gospel is somehow again louder, or it has more meaning when it has more meaning when it is being preached in a position of suffering. It means more, or we realize is its effect, we realize its meaning, what it actually is saying. It is through our downs in life when the gospel makes its true effect, where where Jesus is reflected the clearest, where you can see it, like where you can see Jesus the most through someone. Okay. So my bad. Okay. Just last thing to finish off. Again, this like the extremism, the apostles going, not only the apostles, but an example would be the apostles, Paul. Well, Paul is an apostle. Again, Paul and Peter, John, all these faithful servants who have been harmed, tortured, killed, persecuted, hated. The extremism in which they preached, the extremism of their faith, it adds, it adds a very strong point in favor of the validity of what they preached, of the validity of the Bible, of the validity of the beliefs, like, for example, Christ's resurrection, which is the entire pinpoint of Christianity. It gives it more like significantly more credibility. Because again, no one would die for a lie. It's like, although it is possible, it's just no one would be actually, or no amount of people, like the amount of people that gave their lives for Christ, no amount of people could rationally, could in good reason say, okay, I'm gonna stand by this all my life, and if I have to die, if I am killed, like, I will have keep my faith because I know this is true, or I have extreme confidence that this is true. I mean, no one else, like no one outside the faith, no one would die for example, like belief in Hinduism. No one would die, again, like just false teachings. Or at least, yeah, maybe one or two, but not so many, like the amount of people who have already, given their lives for the gospel. And somehow we treat it as just one more point for, one more argument in favor of Christianity. Not that it's bad, it's really good, like a good argument. But we often forget the significance of this argument. Like, lives were actually, given for this point, for this, for a statement, for this statement right now. Yeah. Summarizing, true servants of Christ preach with the fruits of the Spirit. Preach while at the same time reflecting Christ, which most of those times it's in humility, in boldness, and of course in context. They cannot just be, just yapping about whatever. No. They gotta be sure, if they have the fruits of the Spirit, to, preach the correct thing in the right context. But also, it is not going to be possible 100% of times. We are going to make mistakes. I'm sure I have made a mistake in at least one of the videos, or 5, I don't know. But the main thing is being, given. The main purpose, the main point is being preached, is being emphasized. And also, again, that the gospel somehow, or for some curious reason, makes it somehow, if it could be like, bigger or smaller, it's bigger when we are the smallest, when we are in our lowest. The gospel reaches or can be, you know, preached, not necessarily spoken, but also with their actions, to its full effect. To again reflect Christ in its utmost reflection, clearness. And yeah, that was it. I have to make these 3 recordings I just did, paste them all together into one video, but we'll get it out. Yeah, stay blessed, stay rooted, and stay prayed up. Bye.